Welcome to the So You're Ready to Date podcast. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Angie. And here's where we talk about all things dating, love, and relationships. And most importantly, having fun.
Join us for practical advice for dating successfully on your terms.
Welcome aboard.
And enjoy the ride.
How did your Kello thing go? I didn't see it on Kello.
And I don't know if maybe it's because we had already pre-recorded it. We talked about holidays too. So it was like this one really weird thing where I'm like, yeah, if you want to bring them around for holidays, now would be the time to start introducing them to your I was talking to Sean about it and I'm like, I don't think I give myself enough credit. Ashley, who has been there since I started doing Kello segments, we have gotten to the point where I walk in, she hands me a mic. She doesn't even tell me how to put it on. I just go sit on the couch. We don't even pre-talk about what we're going to talk about. We just sit down and start talking. And I'm like, how amazing is it that you've gotten to a place where you've done enough segments that they know that you know what you're going to talk about and they don't worry about it. And Mitchell, who is the new co-presenter on there, the last time I was there, was like the first time we had done like a formal interview, because they have this new format where both of them sit down with you and chat about it. And he's like, she's really fun. And Ash's like, yeah, she is a good interview. And I'm like, I'm a good interview. And I think I forget to pat myself on the back for getting to this place where I have a death grip on my notes. I can still very clearly remember in my head my first BNI presentation. Look at how far I've come in this space of I don't even really have to look at the notes because I know what I'm going to talk about, and to trust myself to be a subject matter expert now. I'm getting better at that. This has been like 2 years now almost. And so that I've been consistently almost every month, Daniel has asked me back, and they wouldn't ask me back if I wasn't doing something right. I think I forget that sometimes.
2 years is a long time. That would be 104 weeks, but it would be 24 months. If you're going back once a month, that's 24 months. But you just think about it, what I just said 100 times in standing up talking in BNI and standing up giving a presentation and standing up in front of a bunch of people, and you do things 100 times and you get really good at it and really comfortable with it. And I really think that it's important for us to talk about that and the repetition and getting comfortable with it when it comes to dating and relationships, and when it comes to doing those uncomfortable things like talking to strangers in public and introducing yourself and going out on those first dates. I think that would be a really great topic to talk about and to challenge our listener to go and have 100 first dates and really see what happens to your dating style after you've gone out, and maybe not first dates, but on 100 dates. And whether some of those are with the same person or some of those are with different people as you're going through the different things, where do you end up after you've had 100 dates?
So welcome to this episode of the podcast that we have just started recording unintentionally, because here we are. Sometimes the best stuff happens when we don't intend to start recording. So welcome to So You're Ready to Date, because this is a fabulous thing for us to talk about, putting yourself out there and being in this space. It's almost like you have to be in the space of being a beginner, right? You're going to be a beginner. Even if you've been dating for years, every first date, you're a beginner because you're getting to know this one new person and learning how to communicate with a new style. And listen, I grew up painfully shy to the point where I couldn't go through checkout lines. My sister would sometimes have to do that for me. I couldn't make phone calls. Still don't like making phone calls, but that's a completely separate issue. But I think it's this space of knowing that you can do hard things and it's not going to be the end of the world. When I started doing segments for KelloLand Living, which is a local news program here, I very clearly remember the first couple of times being a nervous wreck, because I'm like, it's recorded as if it's live, but it's not live. It goes out later in the day. But it was still knowing that I'm talking about something, and at some point, a whole lot of people are going to see the stuff that I am talking about, because even though I don't see them live in a studio audience, just knowing that they're out there and I'm talking about the specific thing. Why that doesn't bother me about my social media all the time, I don't know. I can't explain my brain. That's just sometimes how things work. But when we're talking about dating, Angie, you made a really good point. I think it's Malcolm Gladwell who says it's like, what, 10,000 hours to become proficient at something. And we were just talking about, getting to 100 podcast episodes and then finally starting to see the progress. Listen, we love everybody who were day one OG supporters. We love you. We count on you. You have been what have kept us going to get to the 100 episodes. So we love you. You are still the bedrock of what keeps this podcast humming along. But we're finally starting to hopefully see some traction as we get closer and closer to 100 episodes, where it makes us easier to ask for guests to come on and for people to see us as a resource for dating, which is what we have always wanted to be.
And it also, in addition to all of that, makes it where we're more comfortable getting on and having impromptu topics. When we first started, we had many more planning sessions. We had many more bullet points that we would line out. And just like when you were talking, I think back to when I was growing up and how shy I was. And I still have some of that. And it's a very weird mix, because people who know me will tell you that I am not shy. I will talk to anybody who talks to me. And I will talk to some people who don't talk to me first, if I can find something to talk to them about. But sometimes I still struggle with finding something to talk to people about. But once you start talking to me, I am not shy. And that is not an innate behavior for me. That is a learned behavior of trying something hundreds of times and trying something over and over and over again in multiple different settings. And I am still working up to the point where I can talk to anybody about anything, anytime. I was recently visiting a friend of mine down in Florida, and we went out, and she talks to everybody. She is so full of life. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times in my few short days with her that we stopped in the middle of the road while driving down the street to have conversations with the people in the cars passing by, or to have conversations with the people walking their dogs down the street, or the guy in his yard who was taking an armadillo 20 miles down the road to release it into a park because it was digging up his yard. And I never would have talked to this guy ever. I had no reason to talk to him, but she wanted to know about the neighbor's house. And it was just amazing to me. And I'm still sitting there envious, going, I wish I was like that. And it showed me how much more practice I needed to do to get to the point of being able to talk to people. But I also look at how far I've come, and I'm really proud of where I'm at. And that comes from practice and being able to stand up in front of people and being able to give presentations and being able to get on this podcast and talk to all of you listeners, and being able to find compliments to give to people, and practicing all of these tips and tricks that we have been talking about for the past 5 seasons.
Yeah, it's one of those where we're like, some days it feels like we're talking out of our ass about this, but most of it has come from our experience or what we've heard from other people. And sometimes it's about stepping back and looking at how far you've come, whether that's in your dating journey, whether that's in your relationship, whether that's being able to have those hard conversations, because we've done a few episodes where we've touched on and we're starting to dig a little deeper into how do you have the tough conversations that you need to have. Because yes, wouldn't it be wonderful if it was all rainbows and unicorns, but it's not. Sometimes you have to speak up and It's one of those things I'm always working on because I'm not used to asking for what I want. And then sometimes that's what it comes down to, is saying, but I want this relationship in my life. Awesome. Great. What are we doing? How are we bringing that relationship into our life? Is it going out on first dates? Is it going out on second dates when you're not quite sure? Again, we're always about not dating somebody if you know for sure they're just a walking red flag, but what is your challenge? And sometimes that's, and part of it was I kind of challenged myself to put myself out there more, to get on the dating apps when I was first thinking, yeah, I think I want to date. And then it was not necessarily saying yes to everybody who asked me out. You need to be particular. If they hit enough of your list, I think that's a good idea. If they hit just a couple, try it and see. But maybe it is a challenge to go out on 100 dates. Doesn't have to be first dates. That's a lot, but it could be just because second dates and third dates are very different experiences as well. So how are you not only celebrating, because I think we need to stop and celebrate, because we don't do that enough, to congratulate ourselves for trying that new thing, for doing that hard thing, for putting in the work, for doing what you need to do to heal that attachment style, or to get over that last relationship so that you're not bringing that baggage into the next. And then to celebrate that I'm trying it, that I'm doing this thing. And what do I want my outcome to be? How do I start to get, sometimes reverse engineering, how do I want to get to that point where I have a successful relationship, if that's what you want?
Starting with the end in mind. I love that. And that should be one of the key things, is always start with the end in mind. It may not turn out exactly like you have planned, this or something better. Always be willing to trade in what your end in mind is for something better, because the universe might have something better out there planned for you. But always start with the end in mind so that you are moving forward with purpose. But I also think about the fact that when something makes me uncomfortable, I might shy away from it at first, but then I typically decide to dive head first into what it is that makes me uncomfortable and push myself very deliberately outside my comfort zone in order to get comfortable with it. I took a job cold calling, and I took a job cold calling people because I was in a position where I realized that I was very uncomfortable picking up the phone and making phone calls, and couldn't seem to get out of my own head where I was doing it on my own and couldn't find the accountability to do that. So I went out and specifically found a job that required me to pick up the phone and cold call people and do sales through cold calling. Now, that was very specifically pushing me outside of my comfort zone. And the very first thing they said is, expect that you're going to get 100 no's. Pick up the phone expecting to fail 100 times before you're going to get a yes. Beginning with the end in mind, my goal was a yes. And if you get a yes right away and you get that you find that perfect person for you, you get that answer that you're looking for, you get that result right away, that's really great. But it's also okay to fail along the way, because every time you do, you learn something new. You pick up a new trait, you get more comfortable with what you're doing, and eventually it's going to become this second nature where you're not going to hesitate to pick up the phone and make that phone call, where you're not going to hesitate to get all dressed up and you're going to go out on that first date, and you're not going to have the same butterflies of nervousness that you have when you're going out on that first date today. And you're going to be much more in tune with what your inner voice is telling you and what your intuition is telling you about your date or about the person that you're with, versus when that's all being covered up by nerves and butterflies and not being able to see what's really in front of you. Practice makes perfect.
I think it was one of the things that I would bring to you and one of our other friends kind of pretty consistently when I was starting to date, where it was like, You don't necessarily have to go on that first date thinking that it's going to be you're meeting the love of your life. What if you just go on this date with the intention of tonight I'm going to have fun. Tonight is going to be something new and something different. And if I meet somebody who it clicks and it ends up being anything, wouldn't that be awesome? But what if my intention is I'm just going to go out and enjoy a new restaurant, enjoy a new bar, enjoy someplace new, and get a chance to practice my skills talking to somebody new? So I think sometimes you have to dial down the expectation because it's a lot of pressure to put on this person that you've never met and to put on yourself of being like, if I don't go out on this date, yeah, it could mean you're alone forever. And is that the worst thing? No. But managing the expectation of it can just be I'm doing this thing because it sounds like fun. And I think I had done enough of those practiced and, getting my dating feet under me that when I met the guy that now I'm currently in a relationship with, that was one of the things I think that attracted him in the beginning was when we had our first date, I was very clear about these were my expectations. This is what I wanted. This is what I was looking for. And I don't think he was quite prepared for me to be as like, no, this is what I want. This is not what I'm looking for. So if you're looking for this, it was nice to meet you, but we can move on. And it, like you said, it helps you narrow down what is for you and what isn't for you. And when you can better articulate that and help people understand, then it makes that process somewhat smoother. You're always going to get those people who are like, I can be what she wants me to be, or I can be what he wants me to be. And maybe then they'll get too deep involved and then we can just, then it's too deep and they're stuck and now we're going to be together forever. But I think it can help you practice getting clear on what is for you, being able to communicate what is for you, and then having the guts to walk away when it isn't what you want.
Confidence is attractive.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what sex you are. It doesn't matter which party you are in a relationship. Confidence is attractive. And it's okay if you're not confident when you first start out. It's practice. And if you go out with the intention of having fun and you put your focus on the other person and getting to know the other person instead of worrying about yourself, you put your intention on having fun and on getting to know somebody else, you're going to become more confident on that first date. But the more you practice, the easier it will become, the more confident you will become. And so, Lisa, like you were saying, by the time you get to a certain point, that confidence is just exuded because you've done this so often. If you're going out without any expectations, you're not expecting success, but you're also not expecting failure. That's the other thing. So let's say that you do challenge yourself to go out on 100 dates and you are failing and failing and failing. And it's not even failure. Failure is just a stepping stone. It's not
failure is information, right?
It's information, it's feedback. It's not a bad word in this case. We're not saying that you're a failure, that you're failing anything, but the person that you're with is not the right person. So you feel like this date has failed, but it hasn't. You've still gone out. You've still done what you've set out to do. You've still met your goal of going out on that date. So if your goal is 100 dates and you're going out on these dates, but you're still not finding the right one, making sure and sitting back and reflecting and knowing that you are not expecting failure when you're going out on these dates. You may not expect success. You may not expect to find the love of your life, but as long as you are not expecting that person to not be the love of your life, then you're still in good shape.
Yeah. When you talk about that, and I'm like, it's all about knowing what your end goal is, because it's perfectly okay to also just be like, I just want to be a person who dates. I think there's a lot of pressure that if you are dating, that it has to have this end result of being in a relationship or being in marriage or all of these other steps. And those are wonderful things to want and to shoot for. But is that what you want? And it's really hard to untangle what your parents want for you, what your friends want for you, what society has told you that you're supposed to want. But what if you're just somebody who wants to date casually? That's awesome. But you need to know what you want, right? If you're not very clear on what are your goals, what are your purposes for this, then it kind of feels like you're always kind of setting yourself up for it not to go the way you want because you aren't clear on what you want.
More and more of the people that I talk to are like, well, I want to date. I want somebody to go do stuff with, but I don't want to live with anybody. I don't want anybody that is up in my business. I don't want anybody serious in my life. I don't want to get married. Even my married friends, I don't want to be married. I just want to casually date someone. So really what do you want? Where are you at? What stage are you in? And are the things that you're looking for really what you want? Or do you have conflicting energies about it? Because really energetically, what you're attracting is where your energetic frequency is at. We did talk about manifesting earlier, and you're bringing in what you're putting out, because like energies attract like energy, getting into the woo woo stuff. And if your like energy if your energy is conflicting and you're saying one thing but your energy is putting out something else, it's no wonder that you're not finding what it is that you are looking for or think you are looking for, if what you're saying and what you're feeling are not matching.
Yes, because I knew that I didn't want to get married. It was something that I actually had to work a little bit on to unravel. I'm like, do I want to get married? And then it got to the point where I'm like, no, I don't. I want a relationship and I want somebody that I'm serious with and that we're exclusive, but I want us to have our separate spaces. I want to, on most nights of the week, have control of the remote. I want on most nights of the week to starfish in the middle of the bed. I want my stuff to be where my stuff is. Does my significant other have his own drawers in the house? Yes, he does. And that's for his stuff. And I don't touch it. And he can make it as messy or as not messy as he wants. But I knew that I wanted us to be able to have our very separate lives and then to have a life that we were kind of building and creating together, because this is going to sound weird. I was too old to change. That's what it came down to. Is like, no, I am not going to turn into Susie Homemaker. Awesome if you are. I love that for you. That was not going to be me. I was not going to try and fit somebody into my life. I wanted to have things still be very separate. I just knew that marriage was not what I wanted. I wanted the relationship and my life to kind of have their own time in their own space. And what it has created for me in my relationship is that when we have time together, we have time together. And phones are put away and we sit and we talk, or we sit and we watch TV, or we get very intentional about our time. And then the rest of the time, he gets to go do his thing. I get to do my thing. And for us, it works. So again, would that work for everybody? No, if that's not what your goal is. But it took some therapy for me to get to the place where I can say that I don't want this and not feel like a bad woman. And I think as women and female presenting people, we have this idea that to not want to be married and have children means there's something wrong with you. To be the ripe old age of 46 and not be married and not have kids and not have some of that other stuff. I'm sure some people thought, what's wrong with her? I knew there was nothing wrong with me. I was just waiting for someone very specific. And I knew it was going to have to be somebody very specific to understand. I have a business I'm building. I have a life I'm building. I have some things I want to do. If you want to add to that, awesome. But I'm not going to be your mom, and I'm not going to be, I'm not going to be your mom. That was it. I was very adamant of, I will be a partner with you, but I am not going to be your mom. And not every man or woman or partner is ready to hear that. So sometimes it might be taking that step back, finding that professional help, getting into a space where you personally feel okay with what your wants and needs and desires are. Because that can come across too, when you know that you're not genuine about that. You're just saying that because you think that that's what the other person wants to hear. That can come across in how you talk and how you date as well. So becoming unapologetic for your needs, wants, and desires is a key part too. Not that you can't compromise, but you need to be very clear on what works for you.
Practice, 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 because that also takes practice. And it can be one of those uncomfortable things that you have to dive headlong into, and be unapologetically you is something that a lot of people have to work into. And it's okay if you have to seek coaching or counseling or any other form of assistance, mastermind, find a support of friends, find support from family or whomever else is the right support for you to be you and to say what you want. And it's okay if you have to maybe stop confiding in people who don't let you be you in the way that you need to be you in order for you to build that confidence, and in order for you to match what you're saying to the energy that you're putting out, to match with the 100 dates that you're going on.
That saying, I don't know where I heard it from, but some people are just a chapter and not the whole book. That
Yep.
sometimes they're there for just this short period of time, not the whole time. So as much as that might hurt and suck and not be great, sometimes that's where maybe you're just a chapter for somebody too. And knowing that it can be really good and fun while it lasts, but sometimes we need to know when that part of the story is done and need to start exploring what's next.
So this week, surprisingly, we came up with a topic that was not really intentional, but I think that it was a really important topic for us to cover, talking about trying something 100 times before you give up on it, because when you do try something 100 times, you are bound to get results of some sort. So before you throw in the towel, before you decide that something's not for you, whether that has anything to do with your love life, dating life, whether that has anything to do with affecting your current relationship, marriage, whether that is in work, whether that is something with your kids, try it 100 times. Let us know how that goes. It takes time to try something 100 times, but it also allows time for results. We want to know the results that you're getting. We want to know what it is that you're committing to try it 100 times. And if you need a fun challenge, we do challenge you to go out on 100 dates, not necessarily 100 first dates, but 100 dates. Drop us a line and let us know how that goes, or drop us a line as you're going through the dates and let us know how each of your dates are going. We would love to hear from you. Feedback, successes, horror stories, anything in between. And we'll be back next week with another great episode of So You're Ready to Date. You can find us in the meantime at soyou'readytodate@gmail.com. We'll see you next week.